Welcome to Crimepedia podcast. This week it's my case. I'm your host this week. I'm Cherry, and with me is my favourite true crime co-host. It is the lovely Morgan.
I hope I'm your favorite
You
true
are.
crime co-host.
Definitely. I haven't got any more, so you have to be my favourite.
How are you?
I am great. Happy Mother's Day. It's Sunday that we're recording, so happy Mother's Day to all you lovely mummies out there. Mothers and others I've seen this week. So happy Mother's Day to the mothers and others.
The mothers and others. And
Apparently.
If you're not in England, yes, today is Mother's Day in England.
Yes, it is. If you're not in England, happy Mother's Day to you too. Why not? Why not? You can share the love.
Every day should be a happy Mother's Day for all the wonderful mothers out there.
Yes, it should. Talking of happy days, we are not far away. I'm just going to bore you all with this again. We're not far away from CrimeCon. We've both been very excited this week because we're planning people to meet up with and planning places to go, and most excitedly planning stuff to eat, which is really exciting. So make sure if you are planning to come to Las Vegas, which is the first CrimeCon, then all you need to do is quote Crimepedia at checkout and we'll give you some percentages off of your ticket price. And the same for CrimeCon London. If you want to come and see us in London, if you can't get to Vegas, unfortunately for you, then come and see us in London because we're going to be there too, both of us this year, which is going to be amazing. So you can come and sniff Morgan. Yeah. Apparently this is a thing.
Want to.
Yeah, apparently this is a thing. Somebody did say to me at CrimeCon UK this year, I always wondered what you smelled like and you smell really nice. And I was like, okay, that's really nice.
All right.
I was like, well, next year you can smell Morgan too. So there you go. You can come and sniff him.
Now, if you are going to be joining us at CrimeCon in Las Vegas, we have some exciting news.
We do, yes.
Cherry and I will be recording a live episode at the Expo stage on Saturday, right?
Yep.
At Saturday from 3:40 until 4:30 p.m., I believe it is.
Yeah, something like that. It's around that time. Well, yeah, we're going to be doing a live episode from CrimeCon, and we'll have a special guest with us, the lovely LaDonna Humphrey. If you don't remember who she is, go back and listen to our episode about the disappearance of Miss Melissa Witt. She has been campaigning tirelessly for over 6 years now for justice for Melissa. She is a super, super interesting woman who is just lovely. And we're going to be talking to her at both CrimeCons because we're going to kidnap her in Vegas and bring her back to England with us. So we're going to talk to her in the England CrimeCon as well. So make sure that you check that one out if you can.
Yep, absolutely. And before we get onto this week's case, we do have one thank you to give. And that's a big thank you to Amanda for joining our Patreon.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate all the support that you guys give us. And thank you for sharing us with all your friends and retweeting and sending out all the stuff that we send as well. That's really, really cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to join our Patreon, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Crimepedia. And you'll be able to listen to our Crimepedia Extra, which we do before every episode, and you'll be able to listen to our new podcast, if you want to call that.
Yeah, it is.
Crimepedia Case Closed, which is our new monthly podcast. Our first episode was just released last week, so if you want to check that out, join our Patreon.
Exciting. So this week's case was suggested to us by Hannah, one of our listeners. She said to me that her mum and grandma took her past the crime scene of this week's episode, literally the day everything happened. So it's been an interesting case to her and it's never been solved. So it's one of those ones that she's always looked into. So this week's case is the murder of Ann Heron. It was the hottest day of the year. The mercury in the thermometers rose to 33 Celsius, which is 91.4 Fahrenheit. Car parks were melting, railway tracks were buckling, moors caught fire and fuel tanks exploded. Ann Heron was making the most of the sunshine, sunbathing in the garden, listening to her radio alongside her dog. That day would also be the start of over 30 years of suspicion that would cloud the Heron family. This is Crimepedia, and this is the murder of Ann Heron. Right, Morgan. So Anne Heron was born in 1946 in Scotland, but she moved to England around 1984 when she began a relationship with a man called Peter Heron. Now, it's been said that Anne's husband had met her whilst he was on a golfing holiday in Scotland, and that they actually had spouses already, but they met on this golfing holiday, and that they left their spouses, and each of them have got 3 children, and then they got married together. So they got married and lived on the outskirts of Darlington, which is in County Durham. Peter worked as a company director of a haulage firm, which was literally down the road from their house. Anne had a part-time job working as a care assistant in a local care home. Now, on Friday, 3rd of August, 1990, Anne had been out in Darlington shopping with her friend. Around 10 a.m., they were planning to go out later that night with another friend and a group of girls. So they were planning this night out together. At around 10 to 1, Anne's husband came home for lunch. His office, like I said, was just down the road. And he said that during lunch, she told him that she was going to get into the garden, do a bit of sunbathing because it was lovely and hot. She had nothing to do for the afternoon before she went out with the girls. And as I said before, it was the hottest day in the Northeast since records began in the 1930s. So Peter left his wife at 2 o'clock and went back to work. Shortly after, and I think around 2:30, one of Anne's friends called and they talked about the party that they were going to later that evening. And Anne had told the woman that she was trying to get hold of her because she couldn't take her to the party because the car she was going in was now full. So the woman, obviously, this is a conversation that she remembered because she had to then make her own way to the party. Shortly before 3:30, a woman on a bus was passing Anne's house and said that she saw Anne in the garden sunbathing. Now, she was wearing a bikini. She had her dog with her. Like I said, she had sun lotion outside. The radio was on, so she was listening to the radio just lying on the sun lounger in the garden. Now, as far as we know, this is the last sighting of Anne Heron alive. Because at about 4:45 that day, a blue car, which is thought possibly to be a Vauxhall Astra, was seen outside Anne's house. Now, Anne's house it's a big house. It's a big white house. There is a main road passing not very far from her house, but you sort of come off of the road onto her driveway into the grounds of the house. So it's not like she's got on-street parking. You have to drive in and into the house. Now, a blue Sherpa van was also thought to have been seen a bit later on, parked at the end of her drive. Now, this witness reported that there were 3 men inside this little van. The van had a distinct trident logo on the side of the van, and police had appealed following what happened to her for anyone who recognised this because they think it's quite a significant logo. It's something that you would remember. Now, just after 5 p.m, a taxi passed Anne's house and saw a man running down the road. So this person was jogging, and the woman that was in the taxi said she was surprised because it was a really hot day and this person was wearing long trousers. And if you're a jogger, 1, I don't think you go out jogging on the hottest day of the year. And 2, you're definitely not going to be jogging in long trousers if it's really hot.
Yeah.
So the woman said that she saw the man run off towards Middleton St. George, and the police believe that they thought it was a local jogger. And they wanted to speak to this local jogger because obviously he jogged straight past Anne's house at the time. The jogger was said to have been wearing a blue vest and then black trousers. But in some of the reports I read, it says that he was possibly wearing shorts. So I mean, if somebody was wearing shorts and someone's wearing trousers, I think you can definitely tell the difference between the two. So in some reports it does say shorts, but in others, mostly it says trousers. And that's what the woman witness said. It was a bit weird because he had trousers on. Now, Anne's husband came home just before 6 p.m. and Anne wasn't at the door to meet him like she normally was. So he thought that was a bit strange. When he went to the front door was wide open, which also was really strange. So he went into the house and found Anne dead in the living room. The radio was still on outside. The sun lounger was still in the same place, along with her book and some cigarettes. The family dog was asleep outside in the garden. And Anne was lying on the floor in a pool of blood. She had a stab wound to her neck. It was thought that she had had her throat cut with something like a Stanley knife or a DIY knife or some sort of scalpel. It was quite a sharp cut to her neck. She was found face down on the carpet with a lot of blood around her, although there was no sign of a struggle in the house. Nothing was missing, nothing was stolen. Literally, Anne was just found face down. Now, because she was found in front of the fire. There were some kinks to the rug, but the police believe that the first responders on scene were probably responsible for that, rather than it being that there was a struggle of some sort. It seems that was the case.
Okay, so real quick with I don't know if you know the layout of the house, but I'm
Mhm.
assuming that where she was found by the fireplace,
Mhm.
that's in a separate room
Yeah.
from where like the front door would be.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and do we know if there was any signs of like forced
No,
entry,
no
or was
signs
there
of
any
forced entry. No, literally just the front door was
um
wide open.
front door was wide open?
Uh huh.
Okay, you said it was the hottest day
Yeah, of the year so far
in
in the
of the
northwest.
year
Yeah.
so far. Now, I'm assuming that especially this time, and actually it might be the same, it might be, the same now, but
Mm.
I'm guessing that like central air is not a common thing
No,
in
no,
England.
we don't usually have like that kind of thing. Everyone just has their
So
windows open. We don't have that kind of stuff
I, I was
usually.
going to say I was assuming that the windows would be open.
Probably, yeah.
Um, now now with your windows, do you typically have like the exterior windows and like an interior like storm window or
No,
like
no,
a
just a window.
okay. I'm trying to see this is where what I'm trying to figure out right now. So
Hmm.
right now it sounds like she was interrupted from her sunbath for
Yeah,
one reason or the other.
yeah.
Either I would be curious to know if you would be able to hear someone at the front door out in the back garden with music on,
Nah.
or if this is more of a situation where she walked into the house and found someone in there.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. So I think if you were in the garden, if somebody sort of shouted, you might hear. If you're in the back garden, someone kind of
Mhm,
shouts, I think you might hear them. But also at the same time, I think that they would probably then walk around the side or walk around the house to see you. But
mhm.
I think that is a point. Perhaps she came into the house from the back garden and found that there was somebody in the house, and then was it perhaps an interrupted burglary or something? Like
Yeah,
potential burglary that obviously didn't happen because they encountered her in the house.
yeah. Because I really and trying to figure out how they got entry
Mm,
into the house, it kind
mm.
of makes it is it a burglary? Is the suspect a stranger, or is it a person that she was familiar with and she just
Yeah,
invited in?
yeah,
And now we have the problem because it's the hottest day, of the year. The windows are open,
yeah.
so even though the front door is wide open,
Mm.
it could be wide open because that's how the person left.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so it was found at the post-mortem that Anne had died from shock and loss of blood. Now, at the inquest, it was heard that there was no known motive, but that it could have been part of a sexual assault because her bikini had been moved. Now, that's all we know, is that the bikini had been moved. There's nothing more on that as to how it's been moved, but she was still dressed in her bikini. So she's come into the house straight from the garden, regardless of, whether she came in on her own accord or whether she came in because someone was at the door. I think if you're in the garden and someone's at the door, you wouldn't walk through the house to go, and you'd go around the side. That would be, I don't know, maybe that's just my thinking. But now police went ahead with their investigation and went in with the opinion that there had been some sexual interference or some sexual involvement in the murder. There was nothing to prove this. There was nothing to prove in the DNA kind of stuff that it was anybody that wasn't sort of in the house. So that was something that they just went ahead with as a possibility, which I think it's a good idea. Now,
Yeah.
police initially centered their manhunt on this driver. Now, he was described as having a suntanned complexion and being
Mhm.
in this blue car that was seen speeding from the scene onto the A67, which runs from Morrison Supermarket to Middlesex and St George. Now, the driver was at the centre of the appeal on Crime Watch. There was an episode. If you put into Google or wherever, YouTube, Crime Watch, October 1990, you should see it come up. So you can actually watch the Crime Watch television. They do a reconstruction and an appeal on there. However, suspicion fell on Peter Heron, her husband, because
Mm.
although he had an alibi for that day, he had been having an affair with a barmaid at the local golf club.
Mm.
So straight away, obviously, we normally go straight for the spouse anyway. He only works down the road, so he can quickly come back. He said he was at home anyway. The other thing is that there was DNA evidence on her body from him. Now, for me,
Of course there would be.
exactly when I read this, I was like, well, it's her husband, so there's going to be DNA. To what extent the DNA was, I'm not sure. But it was. I mean, we're talking 1990. The DNA techniques were found, and that's what they used. So Peter was arrested in 2005 for the murder of his wife.
Really?
Yeah, but the charges were dropped 12 weeks later because the case fell apart due to lack of evidence. So he was then let go free.
Okay, why did it take 12 weeks to figure out we don't have evidence?
I think it was the DNA. They obviously found his DNA and thought, right, we've got him. And then actually realized that no, he's her husband. They live in the same house. There's a huge chance that he's going to have DNA on her body.
Everywhere. Now, okay. Now, if you were like, okay, we have DNA, which is skin cells underneath her fingernails.
Yeah.
That's different than saying, yeah, we found your DNA on her.
But then even that, because that's her husband. They could, she could have her husband's skin cells underneath her fingernails for legitimate reasons, you know? So they're husband and wife. They live together in the same house. They sleep in the same bed. They, eat in the same kitchen. So the chances are she does have her husband's DNA all over her, and he probably has her DNA all over him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So that one, to me, I was a bit like, oh, okay, I get it. But if he's going to also have her blood all over him because he came home and found her on the floor. He was first on scene. So I don't know. I just employed a little bit of with that one. I was a bit like, well, that's a bit jumping the gun, I think.
Was there any other DNA that was found at the scene that we know of?
Not that we know of, no.
Interesting. Okay.
So after...
okay. No, I was just going to say, yeah, so I kind of see why they're like, okay, let's look at the husband.
Totally, because he's having an affair, and
he's having an affair. It's the only DNA you find, right, definitely. On her.
Yeah.
Okay, but still, I mean, I need more than that, especially when it is a spouse. Just finding, your DNA on your wife or your husband, that's not enough.
I mean, it's a horrific scene to come home to, so I would imagine he's going to have her blood on him as well. So, that's the fact that he's got her blood on him. If they arrested him because he had her blood on him and she's got his DNA on her, I can see why, but he's going to have, probably the EMTs, when they got there, they're probably going to have her blood all over them as well. Doesn't mean say they did it,
It's crazy, yeah.
So after Anne's death, someone claiming to be the killer sent letters to her family, to the police, and to a Darlington-based newspaper, which is called the Northern Echo. Now, the Northern Echo do have a lot of stories on this case. Obviously, it's their local paper. There's a lot on the internet if you want to go and look through. They kind of follow the case from the very beginning, right the way through up until present day. Now, at the Times, detectives did say publicly that they believe that these handwritten notes had actually come from the killer, that they weren't a hoax, and they had actually come from the person that had killed her. They haven't said why, but I'm guessing because these letters have never been sort of published in their entirety. So I'm guessing that there's something in those letters that only the killer would know. And that's why the police are straight away convinced that it is the person that killed her.
Yeah, it would have to be. Yeah.
So that's why I think, I mean, they haven't ever published them completely. There's bits of them that you can read, but they've never actually published the whole thing, and I think that's pretty smart, to be honest. But the family kind of got a bit disappointed in the police because they felt that the police weren't getting anywhere with the appeals that they were doing, the TV stuff that they were doing. They felt that they could have done a lot more, so they employed a private death investigator. And this is a lady called Jen Jarvie. Now, she is a lecturer, I think, on like criminal behaviour. I might have got what she does wrong, but she's definitely a lecturer at a university. She basically came up with a completely new suspect. And the Northern Echo were on hand to report her findings out into the public because the police weren't really seeming to take her thoughts into consideration so much. So the guy that she believes might have had something to do with Anne's death is a man called Michael Benson. Now, Michael Benson was a very violent criminal. from Leeds, so quite close. He had a long criminal history involving burglary, robbery with a carving knife against 3 people. And in December 1972, he had been sentenced to a life in prison for causing grievous bodily harm with a shotgun in
Oh,
Southampton. So at the
okay.
time of the murder, he was actually on the run.
Oh, wait. Did he escape prison or is
Yeah,
he escaping?
he escaped. So
Oh,
he was on day release in May 1989. And that summer,
whoa.
I know. Yeah, I know. It's
Whoa, whoa,
crazy,
whoa,
isn't
whoa,
it?
whoa, whoa, whoa,
So
whoa, whoa.
he's
So
got
you
life
have someone
imprisoned.
on life, but he
Yeah.
gets day release.
Yeah,
Get out of here.
I know. I read that and I was like, what? They let him out. So he's in prison for life for grievous
Mhm.
bodily harm with a shotgun,
Yes.
and they let him out on day release.
That is the craziest thing I've
Yeah, it's
heard. That is insane.
crazy. I know. It's absolutely insane. It's ridiculous. So whilst he was on day release, or going out, on his day releases, that summer he got married,
Mhm.
right? And he left his wife in May 1990 and disappeared. So he took her dark blue metallic Ford Orion, and then Anne was murdered later in August. So he went on the run from May and had been on the run at this time. Now, unfortunately, Michael Benson died in 2011.
Oh, of
I
course.
know. Now, he had a suntanned complexion. He
Okay.
also was in possession of a blue car.
Okay.
He is quite possible he was in the area at the time. Now, it's not clear if it was the Sun newspaper or it was Jen, but Michael Benson's ex-wife, Ruth Bennett, was contacted. They showed her one of the letters that the killer had written to the newspaper, and she confirmed that it was his handwriting.
Oh. Okay.
So we've got a guy that's out on day release that's got a history of violent attacking, robbery with weapons. We've got his ex-wife that says, yes, that's his handwriting. We've got letters from supposedly from this guy admitting what he's done. Now, I read this and I thought I took this with a bit of a pinch of salt, to be honest, because to me, I find that it's very easy to pin this on somebody who is not here to give us any more information. He's a
Yeah.
he's a he's a
Oh, yeah.
nasty guy. He's obviously got an issue with multitude of things. He's violent.
Hmm.
He's caused issues and using force, using weapons. So he fits the part. He's obviously driving this blue car that they've said that they've seen a guy in a blue car at the end, but there's no way really, I think, there's nothing else. They've got this guy with suntan complexion that fits. They've got this guy that's
Yeah.
on day release, or he's on the run. That fits. That he's violent and it's possible that he did this. Then they've got these letters, and the wife is saying yes, that's his handwriting. Okay, that fits. I don't know. It's
Okay.
a bit smooth for me. It's all a bit too smooth.
Okay. So you said that, and I think the word you used was he could have been in the area.
Yeah.
Do
He's
we
on the
know for
run, so they
sure
don't
that?
know. No, well, he's on the run,
So we
isn't
don't
he?
know
So
for
they don't
sure.
know for sure that that's where he was. I mean, he hasn't got an alibi to tell you about because he's died. So there's no way he can say to you, oh, yeah, I wasn't here. I was somewhere else. Because he's not here
Hmm.
anymore to argue. So that's the one thing I thought, yeah, I mean, it all fits. Yes, it does. It all fits. It all fits quite snugly. But does it fit a bit too well, That was my
Yeah,
instant reaction to it.
because it's easy to fit someone into a case after the fact, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not saying Peter did it. Obviously, Peter got he had an alibi and he was, it wasn't him. I'm not saying that he did it. What I'm saying is I hate to pin all of your hopes on this one person. I mean, the family just want answers. I totally understand that. But you want the real answers. You don't want to believe this guy did it and then actually that not be the case, because it's false hope for you, isn't it? Now, Peter was obviously disappointed in what the police had been doing. He's now 86 years old and he has had years and years of speculation on him still, even though he didn't do it and they've got proof that
Yeah.
he didn't do it. He's got an alibi. They've proved that it wasn't him. people still, you know what it's like, people are like that, aren't they? They're a bit like, was it him, wasn't it him? Well, he's been clear, but was it him? I don't think it was Peter. I don't think he's got any reason to to do that. Her friends haven't said that there's anything going on that she's not happy with in the marriage, because women would normally talk to their friends about things. There'd be somebody that she would be confiding in, and there's nothing to say that they weren't happy, you know? So
Mhm.
Peter wrote a letter to Durham police. Now, this is quite a lengthy letter. So I don't know whether you want me to read the whole thing or whether you want me to like skim over bits, because it is quite a long letter. And he basically says, like, after 30 years, thanks to the immense efforts of my family and a private death investigator, a snippet of the truth surrounding the murder of my wife, Anne, is slowly emerging. So he then invites the police to read this letter and respond publicly to the breakthroughs that they've come up with on a family, with the family. Now, after Anne's death, he says that he kept in touch with them on a monthly basis. He gave them their new address, new telephone numbers, so that he could be contacted wherever he was, whenever he was. So
Mhm.
he said, until November 2005, my family and I believe that you were doing your absolute best to find the driver of the blue car that was seen fleeing the scene of the crime, which at the time was regarded as the best clue as to who killed Anne. So then he said he goes on to talk about him being arrested and the fact that because she had DNA on her, it's ridiculous that he was arrested. He then goes through and says that his daughter Debbie has been campaigning tirelessly to keep Anne's case and the situation that he's been in alive, because basically there's nothing in the newspapers anymore. The police aren't following up leads anymore. The case has basically gone cold. Now, in 2019, there was a new officer in charge of Anne's case, because the police say that cases never go cold. They're never closed until until they are solved. They just keep being re-looked at by fresh eyes every now and again. And the person that was in charge of the case ended the meeting by saying if Debbie, his daughter, could prove his innocence, that they would issue a public statement to say that he was not involved in the death of his wife. She then did that. She
Uh-huh.
used a court prosecution bundle of evidence, and they've never issued a public statement
Oh
to
my
say
god.
that he is cleared of, killing his wife. So when Jen Jarvie got involved, Jen identified this Michael Benson, and he was, like I said, escaped whilst he was serving a life sentence. He was on the run. He was never recaptured before he died. I
Mhm.
don't know how he died, but he was never recaptured. He was on Crime Watch. He was driving a blue car. There was people that had rang up afterwards. Now, the same program said that they did another program about this, and they got the name Michael Benson sent to them, and he was asking why wasn't he checked out. This name had come up
Yeah.
before Jen had found them. Why on earth wasn't it checked out? Why wasn't he
Mhm.
looked into? So
Yeah.
there was also um, there was an article in the Northern Echo. And the police said, whilst there is no current investigation into Ann Heron's murder, the case will never be closed. Any new information which comes to light will be fully considered and the necessary action taken. However, they've brought this Michael Benson to the police's attention, and nothing that they can see
Nothing.
has happened. So as far as they're concerned, nothing is going on. Nothing is being looked into because he's dead. And he's saying, I've asked you so many times to keep this case alive, keep it in the limelight. Somebody must know something. Somebody came into my house in broad daylight, armed with a knife, and brutally murdered my wife. And I want to know if it was Michael Benson or not. So he's saying he wants them to act and rule Michael Benson out or in of the inquiry. He's also asked that this investigation is now handed over to another force, because there's new evidence that they found with this Michael Benson, and he wants fresh eyes to look at it. The last thing he asked for was a public apology, not only for himself, but for his family and everybody who stood by him without question for the last 30 years, to find, basically to prove that he did not do this. He wants it publicly known by the police to say that he did not do this. And he said, it's
Yeah.
very interesting. The end of his letter, he says, if you're not prepared to do this, then rearrest me. Take me to Crown Court and give me the right to restore my good name once and for all in a court of law. Something that you denied me in 2006 when you took the decision to discontinue my trial. I remain respectfully yours and I await your public response, as I'm sure do many others. And that's the end of his letter. Now, he and Jen have asked the police to look into all of this, and as yet, there's nothing. The police have not issued any statements. They've not gone to the press with anything. They've not said that they're actively looking into Michael Benson. And you've got to admit, I mean, it all fits. It's got to warrant somebody looking into it, surely.
Yeah.
You can't ignore the
is
fact that this guy
insane.
is out, on the run, and that he's violent.
Oh,
and he
yeah,
happens to be driving a blue car, and he's
Mhm.
also of a darker complexion. I mean, all that stuff fits with what the witnesses are seeing. The one thing that they don't talk about for anymore is the other van, the Sherpa van with the Trident logo with the 3 men in it. There's nothing's mentioned about that. So have they ruled that person out? Have they come forward? Because at the moment, there's nothing to say that they have or haven't.
I would have. Yeah. I mean, if you have, you should let people know because
you're closing the net in, aren't you? So
yeah,
the more people you can exclude.
I'm still stunned that a person who was
I know
had life in prison was on the run for so long.
I know, and completely evaded police, and he didn't ever get recaptured. He actually died whilst on the run.
That is crazy. So he look, that he had to have committed other crimes while he was out.
Of course he did. That's all he knows.
He's not going to get a legit job.
No. It's also, I mean, he's been linked to, Jen Jarvie has found that he's also linked to some people being robbed on a towpath, not very far away from where the Herons lived. Mm-hmm. So she's found that he was most probably also accountable for that as well. So there's lots of stuff. She's got lots of evidence that this guy was out causing all sorts of mayhem, but no one in the police has quite put those pictures all together to realise that actually this guy is on the run and he's been out causing all sorts of trouble. But they just don't seem to want to listen to her. I'm not sure why not.
I mean, here's the thing, because if there's something about this guy that they know about, they're like, okay, it couldn't have been him. At least come out and say, like, no, it couldn't have been him because we know for a fact that he committed a crime on this same day in another part of the country, right? Stop the family
from having to, like, they're pinning all their hopes on the fact that it's this guy because that's all they've got at the moment. So the fact that the police are saying nothing, I don't think that's very helpful to the family. They could at least look into it.
Okay, at this point, how do you either prove or disprove this theory of this Michael Benson being the killer with him being gone, right?
That's right.
Unless there's some other DNA that no one knows about. And if you have other DNA, why don't you test it against him?
Yeah. It's difficult, isn't it? It just feels to me like when you read through this, something's missing. It feels like they've got most of the pieces of the puzzle, but there's just something that just needs to tie all of this together, and then they'll get their answer. And I don't know whether the police know that there's something and that that's why they're not doing anything with this, because they know that this guy isn't responsible for this. And I don't know. I mean, it seems. We're talking 2019. They had another person. I think it was 2019 or 2018. That's when they spoke to the person that was leading the case at the time. So there is somebody on this case. There is somebody looking at this case every so often, at least. So why this information that she's bringing to them, if they know it's not the case, why don't they just tell her that to stop her from wasting her time? If it's credible, why not look into it? Because
no, you're right.
That could solve it. I mean, surely this man has had to endure 30 years of wondering who came into his house and who brutally murdered his wife. It was a brutal killing for no known motive that police have come forward and said. There doesn't seem to be anything. any reason why this person did this. And let's think for a minute, why do people commit crimes? I mean, this is a brutal crime. Somebody's slashed her neck. So, and they've just left her there and fled. Okay. So what would they be doing at her house? It's obviously not somebody that she knows, if that's the case. Well, we can't say it's obviously not somebody knows. It might be very well somebody she knows, but let's look at the crime scene. The front door's open. It's a hot day. The front door's unlocked, but the dog's in the back garden. So the dog's not got anywhere near this person.
Yeah.
The windows could have possibly been opened. I'm not sure because it doesn't say in any of the reports that I read that the windows were open. But this person has come into the house without any brute force. There's nothing that we know of that's been stolen. There's, so if it was an interrupted burglary, would they have, she's dead. So they know she's incapacitated on the floor. Would they then go around and grab what they could?
Yeah.
Or is this...
You would think.
Exactly. Is this a sexual attack that's gone wrong and they've killed her? Trying to think in a process of why people do certain things. If it's a stranger, what are they doing in a house? It's an opportunity. Did they see her in the garden and thought, right, she's in the garden, I'm going to go in through the front door, break in the front door, rob the house. She's out the back.
Yeah.
The husband's
grab
left.
whatever you
I've
can
seen
and
the
get
husband
out.
left. She's come in, not realizing someone's in there and disturbed them. They've panicked and stabbed her and gone, but nothing's been taken. There's nothing knocked over. There's nothing that's, so she would have had to literally have startled them as soon as they entered the house. What are the chances of that?
This is so strange. No, if someone's breaking into the house and they're caught, you would think the first thing that they would do would probably be just to run. Take off.
Yeah.
Unless you're a guy who is on the run from the police already.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be, you don't want to be seen, or you don't want someone to be able to go forward and say, yeah, this is the guy. And
and get on the phone quickly.
They know. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, it's strange because it doesn't seem like it's a sexual thing at all.
No.
Right? Not to me.
No. I mean, to be fair, also, if they had a bit of a struggle and because it's going to have been really close to her to stab her in the throat.
I was thinking the same thing.
So our clothes are going to get moved,
Yeah. And you would think that there would be some sort of DNA transfer or some sign of this person somewhere in the house. The front door, I mean, did they take fingerprints? Did they find any fingerprints in the house that didn't match any her or her husband?
No, not that we know of. Not that's been reported. There's nothing.
I mean, I'd like to believe it was Michael Benson.
Yeah.
I would like to believe it.
Yeah.
But unless there's real hard evidence, it's hard to say, yeah, for a fact it was absolutely him. And
like we said, it's very easy to do that after the fact. It's very easy to put those together and this guy's on the run. Yes, it could well have been him. And obviously we know he's violent. We know he's used force with weapons before. So we know that he's got that in him. So yes, okay, that's good. But I don't know whether he was definitely in the area at that time. What can we say?
That's the problem. That's the
there's
problem.
No ANPR stuff saying that he was in the area. But I mean, good for Jen Jarvie. I mean, she's devoted her time to this for free. She hasn't charged the family anything. She's just said, look, I want to help you. I feel like I can help you with my expertise and the passion I've got for this kind of stuff. I just want to help. And so, I mean, I don't know why the police aren't they doing anything? Why don't they just, okay, just to humor you, yes, we'll look into it. Why don't they just look into it and then say to her, okay, look, this is the holes. We can't prove that he was definitely in that area at the time, or this is wrong, that's wrong. We already know he wasn't there. Why don't they just look? Why? Because this family is has never been whole, never been complete since that day. And it hangs over them so much. I just think it's really sad. I feel like they probably feel really helpless. They're trying to do all they can to get answers. And they're not. Nobody from the police end is kind of taking them seriously by the sounds of things. I mean, obviously this is just from their side. The police might say something completely different, but
here's the thing: the police, even if you don't think that Michael Benson is a viable suspect, you have to at least respect the family enough to look into it
Yeah.
and to communicate with the family.
Why they don't think he's a credible suspect.
Why exactly?
Yeah.
You can't just like blow off a victim's family and really not communicate with them.
Yeah.
Because all that's going to do is that's going to make people feel like you don't care.
That's right. And it just looks really bad.
It does.
So
It looks really bad.
it is. And as you know, as of this date, the murder is still unsolved. We're still none the wiser as to who killed Ann Heron. Her family are still none the wiser. Now, the police have said that if any new information comes to light, if there's anything that's worth them looking at, they will look into it. They'll take it into consideration. So let's hope now that all this information that Jen's finding is they're actually going to look at it. They are actually going to do what they've said and investigate it some more. Because that's what needs to be done in this case, even if it's just to put the family's mind at rest that, yes, okay, possibly it could be him. Yes, you're right. You're on the right track. But due to the fact that he's dead, due to the fact that there wasn't like ANPR cameras around, we can't place him 100% in the area. We can't 100% say, yes, it was him. That at least gives the family some kind of hope that the police are listening to them, you know?
Yeah.
So that is this week's case for you.
Thank you very much.
You are most welcome.
Thank you very much. Frustrating, but thank you.
Very, very frustrating. So thank you to Hannah for suggesting that one. And if you've got a suggestion of a case you'd like us to look into, then you can send it over to us. You can email us if you want to. We are info@crimepediapodcast.com. Or you can find us on socials and just send it through. And thank you to everybody that has done that. We are making lists, and everything that you send us will go onto a list, and we will look at it. We promise. We do have a few commitments that we've got to do, but we will get around to look into everything that people suggest to us and see if it's something we might be able to help with.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is one I'm going to think about a lot, I think.
Yeah. Same here. Just very strange case.
Yeah.
Strange, not a strange case per se, but it's how police are going about it. I find very strange.
I just feel like there's one little piece of information that could just fit all of this together. We're just missing that one thing, and I think someone needs to find it. You know, so
yeah. I started thinking about this when earlier I had said something along the lines of like it's easy to fit a suspect into a case after the fact.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I started thinking about this, and before Joseph D'Angelo was named and was found guilty.
Yeah.
Of being the Golden State Killer, East Area rapist, original Night Stalker, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
There were numerous people who fit those crimes, right? So you're able to find people that made sense.
Yeah.
Within the context of all the crimes.
Yeah.
I found someone that fit perfectly, where they were connected to multiple scenes, right? But it wasn't them.
Oh, okay.
The point is, it's easy to take a fine-tooth comb to cases and fit a suspect into the case. Yeah.
Rather than come across them and then the cases come kind of falling in around them. I know what you mean. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I mean, because you start with, blue car. Yeah, Michael Benson had a blue car. But how many other people in 1990 were driving blue cars?
Well, the police actually looked over like something ridiculous, like thousands and thousands of cars. They actually checked thousands of blue cars that were taxed and insured and on the road at that time. And none of them were within that area, or they discontinued like all of them. So they actually did rule out a lot. So I don't know. It is very difficult. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think the police are not doing their job properly. I think they're doing their job as far as they can do. But I think this kind of after part where the family are going back to them and saying, "Look, we found this guy. He fits the bill. Can you look into it?" And the police don't seem to be looking into it, even if they said yes, we will. And I don't know. It just feels, I think from the family's point of view, it kind of feels like they are hitting their head against a brick wall and that they're not getting any help
Yeah.
from the police. They're trying to give them information and the police don't seem to be doing anything about it. I think that's a frustrating thing for the family. They're saying that they will look into new stuff, but actually then they're kind of not. So I think that's where the police downfall has been. I think the actual handling of the case and it had so much media attention, a lot of media attention. They appealed and appealed. But I think since it's gone cold and now since this guy's died, I think it's kind of like, well, what can we do kind of thing.
What can we do?
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think that's the thing.
Oh, frustrating. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once again, thank you for that.
Welcome.
All right. So how about we finish off this week's episode with a little dumb criminal?
Hey, Captain Stupid Poopy Pants. Use a dummy.
I love that one, the stupid poopy pants. I like that.
That's a good one.
It is a good
Thank you,
one.
Captain.
Thank you, Captain.
So, Cherry, how familiar are you with Bitcoin?
Absolutely nada. Nothing whatsoever do I know, other than it's cryptocurrency.
Okay.
Which I also don't understand.
Well, a former Irish beekeeper turned drug dealer had a little bit of bad luck after he decided to stash codes to accounts harboring close to $60 million in Bitcoin in the aluminum cap of a fishing rod case. Okay.
Okay.
Now, this aluminum cap of the fishing rod case happened to vanish after the, once again, beekeeper turned drug dealer, Clifton Collins, ended up getting arrested and sentenced to prison.
Oh, no.
Yes.
$60 million worth. Oh, my God.
$60 million. Yeah. So the 49-year-old descent into a life of crime and an ill-begotten fortune began around 2005 when he abandoned work as a security guard and beekeeper, the latter of which earned him awards for his honey to start growing pot full time.
Oh, my God.
Now, he rented a home in Galway where he grew and harvested his crops. And from the ample cash he made selling the cannabis in Dublin, he decided in late 2011, early 2012 to invest in Bitcoin, which at the time was valued at about $5 per coin. Okay?
Okay.
So the Irish Times noted that by 2017, Collins had roughly 6,000 Bitcoins all in one account.
Wow.
But as the price began to rise, he feared one hack job could wipe him out. So he created 12 accounts and placed 500 Bitcoins in each. He was arrested later that year after cops found more than $2,100 worth of cannabis in his car, and he was sent to prison for 5 years.
Why did he keep doing the cannabis if he's got 60 million quid's worth of Bitcoin
I
on
have
the go?
no idea.
What a weirdo.
No idea.
Why not just can you just take that money out? Like, can you take Bitcoin out and swap it for real money?
Yeah.
Why didn't he do that? What an idiot.
I don't know. But here's the thing. While he was in prison, his landlord decided to clean out his house. And the fishing rod case disappeared.
I bet it did.
Okay. Now, workers at the local dump say they remember seeing thrown out fishing gear and that it had likely been incinerated.
No, all those codes.
Yes.
So what happens to the money?
It's gone.
To who? Where? Where's it gone?
Just gone. It's just sitting out there, gone. You can never recover it.
Oh, no way.
So here, put it this way. Now, about $1.6 million in Bitcoin held in other accounts were recovered by Irish police.
Oh, by the police. Because he's using stolen. I suppose he's using drug money to buy the Bitcoin, so he can't have the money anyway. Oh no!
Exactly.
No way.
Now here, I'm gonna do this real quick. Let's see what the price of Bitcoin is. Okay.
Yeah.
Currently, one Bitcoin is US dollars. It's $44,919.20.
44,000. One Bitcoin.
44,000. So at one point he had 6,000 Bitcoins.
Oh
right?
No way. That is
$269,515,200.
What an idiot. That's the dumbest criminal we have ever had. He could have had such a good life. He could have just cashed his Bitcoin and gone.
Yeah. Yes.
What
Yes.
an idiot. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't trust this whole Bitcoin thing. I don't like I don't like currency you can't physically touch.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
And yeah, and the reason he ended up going to jail is because he was pulled over by police, and they, like I said, they found $2,100 worth of cannabis in his car.
What an idiot!
So you lost out, on millions of dollars.
$200 million for 2,100 pounds worth of cannabis.
Cannabis,
you idiot! Absolute fool.
Could you imagine sitting there in jail, just like what?
Chastising yourself for being an absolute penis.
So yes, so Clifton Collins, you
are the star. You are top leaderboard of our dumb criminal. I don't think there's going to be very many people that are going to push you off. You are by far the winner.
I cannot comprehend losing that much money.
I'd be sad losing the 2,100. The 200 million. Oh my God. That's just blown my mind. That's crazy.
It's absolutely insane.
Thank you for that.
And what happened to his bees? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Why doesn't anyone think about the bees? They
should give the bees the money. They find it.
Yeah. Give it to the Queen. She'll have it.
That's so crazy.
That's the craziest one we've had so far. Thank you. And thank you if you've suggested us. No, if you've suggested us any dumb criminals, we've had a couple of suggestions in as well. So yeah, by all means, feel free to suggest dumb criminals to us because some of them are really funny, and we'll bring those to you at the end of every episode. So we're always happy for more. So thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you for joining us this week. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. We will be back next week. It'll be Morgan's case, of course. And for now, be nice.
And bye.